Hey guys, I haven't made any videos in a while and I've had people asking me what's going on. So I thought I'd do a bit of an update of what's been happening with the rally cars. The good news is they are both going at the same time and both going very well. I haven't been doing much in the way of projects lately, but I have been doing plenty of driving as well as the usual tweaking and developing. So here's the mid-season update. This year in 2024 I've decided to undertake a big new challenge in the shape of the New Zealand Rally Championship. This is a big step up for me in many aspects, big competition, exciting new events, and big commitment to empty my bank account. But, as they say, you only live once and you can't buy shit in heaven. I will be driving my relatively fresh toy, my Toyota GT86. Most of my watchers will be familiar with this car. I put together last year in 2023. The FA20 has gone to its rightful home in the scrap bin and has been replaced with a Subaru Flat 6 EZ30 engine. Along with a Motec ECU and a rather unique exhaust, it makes 240 wheel horsepower. This power is fed through the factory 86 transmission and with a CAS LSD. It has some proper rally dampers and some big brakes off a factory Subaru. A nice little package, but reasonably basic in the scheme of rally cars. I've also been driving my Celica, but stay tuned for that later in the video. First round for the New Zealand Rally Championship, or NZRC, is 4 hours south of my hometown, the famous Rally Otago. The opening event is 2 days worth of very fast and flowing roads. This year it attracted some big international drivers, such as Chris Meek and Brendan Semenuk. The 86 would be entered in the open two-wheel drive class. Essentially the only rules are related to safety and obviously being two-wheel drive. Otherwise, fill your boots. I was rather disappointed to find out only 3 had entered this class. Myself, along with 2 veterans of the sport, Dave Strong with his wickedly engineered and very powerful mid-engined Honda Jazz, and Brent Taylor with, funnily enough, also with an 86 and also with an EZ30, somewhat similar to my car but with 10 years worth of development. So basically I was up against it. I set my expectations quite low and focused on finishing the event and slowly upping the pace over the rally. The first 2 stages confirmed this. The other guys were close, but I was a minute back on both of them already. Me and Jason got through the rest of day 1 without any dramas. Unfortunately for Dave Strong, his engine expired, leaving just a pair of 86s to tussle it out for day 2.
Class. That is Willie Hawes on cue. Jason Dwyer, his co-driver. Got a good throaty exhaust note to it, that car, doesn't it? Yeah. Big central exhaust. Willie he's an engineer by trade and a tinkerer. Loves engineering his rally cars, and it's great to see that.
Nice looking car, well presented car as well.
Yeah. It's not quite number 8Y mentality, but the ability to go into your shed in New Zealand and build a car and tinker with it.
The open two-wheel drive class had got off to a great start on stage 1. Dave Strong led in his V6 engine Honda Jazz. But Brent Taylor just 0.1 of a second back in his Toyota 86. And Willie Hawes, the newcomer, just a few seconds back in his similar 86. But the Honda stopped in stage 6, leaving just the 2 Toyotas to fight it out. Taylor edged out a clear lead by the day's end to take the class win on day 1.
And then on to day 2, more super fast stages, but without any drama for us. In the second to last stage, we drove past the stricken 86 of Brent Taylor, who had an expired gearbox.
That is Willie Hawes.
It's Willie there, isn't it? Yeah. So, Hawes just needs to get through this stage unscathed. It's a little bit wide there.
GT86.
Jason Dwyer sitting.
Similar looking car to the Brent Taylor car, but certainly not similar spec.
Brent had a fairly sizable lead over Willie heading into the last couple of stages, but he came unstuck on the penultimate stage. Not going to be in all rounds of the championship this year either, so from a championship standpoint that really does hurt.
Willie Hawes was the only finisher in the open two-wheel drive category in his Toyota 86 after Brent Taylor suffered gearbox failure.
It was a shame to see Brent retire. He had put a bit of a stranglehold on the class, but Willie survived and done a great job to make sure he was at the finish to pick up the biggies.
This left me as the only finisher. It would appear that today the Turtle would win the race. Obviously, this is not how he wanted to take the win, but we'll take the points. Next round is South Canterbury, the closest round to me in the championship. Like Otago, these are also very fast flowing roads with one very tricky forestry stage to shake things up. Unfortunately, there were just 2 cars entered in the class, myself and Dave Strong. I would up my pace slightly relative to him, taking 2 stages off him during the day in the more tight and twisty stages, but his pace on the fast roads was beyond me, so I settled for second. Again, the car is perfectly reliable.
Dave Strong and Willie Hawes had entered open two-wheel drive, and the 2 cars could not be more different. Hawes' Toyota 86 is based on the production Toyota 86 with a 3-litre H6 engine. Dave Strong's Honda is a real rally special. Not only is the engine mid-mounted, but replacing the stock Honda Jazz unit is a supercharged 300 plus horsepower V6 engine.
And that makes a pretty special noise.
In the end, Strong's experience and the superior power paid off, the Honda driver taking the victory.
Now there is more to rallying for me than the NZRC. I've also been doing some rally sprints in the Celica. For those that don't know, this is a rather special Celica that I've been playing with for near on 10 years now. Turned up, it has 500 wheel horsepower, and the first rally sprint this year is Upper Downs Road. The first run shown here is rather conservative, being a first run, but it ended up second fastest overall. Unfortunately, things went downhill after this. On the second run, I could smell a fuel leak in the cabin about halfway through the run. I buttoned right off and slowly cruised to the end. As I crossed the finish line, a fire erupted from the engine bay. Most fortunately, there were plenty of fire extinguishers around, so a bunch of other competitors in a flash came to my aid and killed the fire in a matter of seconds. It turned out I left a fuel hose loose from when I recently installed the engine. The rally gods gave me a break, and there was virtually no damage to the car. In fact, it started and ran as normal. However, the engine bay was completely filled with extinguisher powder, and that shit is nasty. I called it quits for the event, and just to make sure the car was okay. I spent a great many hours cleaning out the car after that, but it could have been a lot worse. Next up for this Celica, I decided to bolt on the semi-slicks and have a go at a tarmac hill climb. This didn't go much better than the last event. On the very first run, I snapped the front left axle launching off the start line. The car was now mostly rear-wheel drive. As I hooked second gear on the slightly damp tarmac, the rear end overtook the front end, sending me into the bank. This was rather embarrassing, crashing 20 metres from the start line, but that's racing. I didn't have a spare stub axle with me, so I called it quits yet again. The front left stub axle is the weak part of this Celica drivetrain. I've since upgraded to a billet stub. I may also retire the Celica from tarmac. We'll see how it goes. The next event is the Globe Mine Hill Climb on the wet and wild west coast. This is one of my favourite roads. Very wide, beautiful corners that all seem to flow nicely into each other. Despite a boost hose falling off on the second run, I came away with 3rd overall, so pretty chuffed with that. Third sprint, now closer to home, a very tight and technical road with a tricky surface offering variable levels of grip. And this needed a solid drive of 4th overall. Here is hoping the reliability with the 5S GT Beams engine is behind me. The next event was my home rally, but this was not part of the New Zealand Rally Championship. However, still a good opportunity to get some seat time, do some testing, and of course have some fun. These roads were predominantly in the forest, mostly tight, technical, and being in the middle of winter, muddy and slippery. It was mostly going to plan until the 3rd stage. I chose to cut a corner that should not have been cut. The front right wheel got a massive shut, bending the lower control arm. We managed to limp back to the next service. We did have a spare control arm on hand, and we only just had enough time to change it out. Then with an iometer wheel alignment, we were back into it. We then had an overheating issue with the car on the touring section. Fortunately this did go away once we were racing, and just turned out to be low on coolant. But then on stage 5 I had a bolt snap that held the subframe in, and the same bolt also held on a lower control arm. Needless to say, quite an important bolt. This didn't stop us, and yet again we managed to limp to service. There was no way to fix it properly, so a bodge was in order. We managed to carry on and compete the next few stages. Second to last stage, the steering column fell off its mounts, so I had a wheel in my lap for a few miles. Not fun. It turns out I just hadn't tightened up some bolts properly. Despite all of this, me and Jason managed to finish. We obviously lost a lot of time with these issues, but many others also had dramas, so we ended up 18th overall and 6th in class. Now back to the New Zealand Rally Championship. The next event is in the deep south, based in Invercargill, the Southern Lights Rally. A new event for me, and for most. It returns after a 20-year hiatus. Myself, Dave, would duke it out with a new competitor, Murray Percival, joining the class. The first two stages were run in the dark, a unique and very cool experience. These stages were a good mix of very fast roads with a couple of treacherous forestry stages, and also some beautiful flowing medium speed stages. The rally was going pretty steady up until stage 6, when I lost the use of the clutch. It would not disengage. So I had to rev match each gear change, which is certainly a challenge when you're trying to operate a rally car at speed. The procedure for taking off was to turn the engine off, put it in gear, and crank the starter over until it fired up, and then off you went. Fortunately, the Wii starter motor is a champ and got me to the end. I assumed the problem at the time was a bent clutch fork, but it actually ended up being a clutch pivot that it's wound its way out for some reason. An easy enough fix once we got the gearbox out of the car.
5 cars competing in the two-wheel drive class. Dave Strong certainly the favourite in his powerful mid-engined Honda Special, but he had a close call on stage 1 when his lights failed at the start. With his lights repaired, Strong was able to push much harder in the morning. Willie Hawes picked up a penalty on stage 2 for speeding through the virtual chicanes, so now 52 seconds adrift.
And those virtual chicanes are put in place to bring the average speed down in the name of safety. Competitors just have to drop down to a nominated speed and then they're free to go again.
Murray Percival lost time with an electrical fault on Friday and a loose gear stick on Saturday morning. In the historic escort, Paul Fraser was just a second ahead of Hawes and fastest in that class.
It's great to see the proper historic cars out there as they used to run in the day. And a BDA Escort was definitely a sight that would have been seen on Southland rallies of days gone past.
Mike and Helen Cameron had survived the night, but the faithful Mitsubishi Lancer was running out of speed on the long, fast straights here.
In the little 1600, she's all tapped out at 160 kilometres an hour.
Dave Strong pulled clear of the competition over the afternoon stages, although the gap remained at 90 seconds to Hawes. Hawes was fastest of the two-wheel drives on stage 6, and over the remaining stages was able to cement second place. Paul Fraser in his historic Escort repeated his success from round 1 and 2, finishing third in this group and first in the historics. Mike Cameron finishing fourth in this group, another solid performance from the oldest car in the championship. Those issues early in the rally, too much for Murray Percival to recover from, but fifth place still good for championship points.
So Dave Strong topping the two-wheel drive standings ahead of Willie Hawes and Murray Percival. Paul Fraser the first of the historics ahead of Mike Cameron.
So yeah, we are now at the halfway point of the season. Thanks to a reliable and consistent car, myself and Dave topped the open two-wheel drive class. The championship now moves to the North Island for another 3 rounds. I've never rallied up there, so this will be an exciting new adventure. Back home, we will be entering the Celica in the famous Ashley Forest Rally Sprint, always one of my favourite events, so stay tuned for that. Let me know what you think of this style of video. Sometimes it's a bit hard to film events when you're so focused on the job at hand. But yeah, anyway, cheers for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.